guys, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome back to ASMR Money Mentor. This is Evan Thomas coming at you with another episode. Thank you so much for being here. Another rose for you for recognizing your savings excellence. And if you're not saving, then I would encourage you to do so, because we, this week, are talking about how to become an automatic millionaire, and this is part 2. So if you're just joining me, thank you for being here. And if you missed part 1, go back and watch part 1. We are now continuing on to chapter 2, where David Bach, who wrote the book How to Become an Automatic Millionaire, we're talking about how you can become an automatic millionaire if you practice some of the basic concepts that we're talking about. And by the way, you know, these are basic concepts. I know that most of you know these things, but I think for most of us it is good to revisit these things, because sadly, as I talked about in the other episode, people lose track of their ability to save and invest over time, because those shiny objects come into our lives like new furniture, new homes, bigger homes, more expensive cars, and all of those kinds of things that unfortunately get in the way of our ability to become financially free. And I do not want that for you. I want you guys to become financially free. I became financially free in the year 2020, and yet I decided to continue to work. And you guys know I'll be sharing with you what my retirement date is, because I have made that decision, and I'll be sharing that with you in a couple weeks. Anyway, moving on in our discussion of automation. We had talked through chapter 1, and we're moving on to chapter 2. And before we get to chapter 2, there was one more thing I wanted to mention, is that, you know, saving a few dollars here and there is not going to make you financially free and or a millionaire. However, if you start doing this when you are young, like many of you are, then saving those dollars and putting them into investments will help you become financially free in the future, because of what is it that is on your side? Time, of course, and that time then gives you the ability to leverage compound interest, and it's interest on interest that you begin to get over time. And that's why I am so glad that you guys are here watching ASMR Money Mentor, because as I've shared with you before, I wish that I knew back when I was your age. Perhaps if you're in your 20s right now, I wish I knew about compound interest. And let me rephrase that. I think I did know about compound interest, of course. I always thought that I would always make more and more and more and more and more money, and I could catch up, and I did catch up. But it sacrifice and discipline and dedication that I could have spent a little bit more money when I was younger if I would have saved a little bit more when I was younger, if that makes sense. And so if there's one thing I would like to get across to all of you this week is that you should start now. And that is this is not something you're learning, you've heard this before. But hopefully coming from somebody that has made a lot of financial mistakes when I was younger, and I've shared with you over episodes 1 through 62 how I got to where I got to, I hope that it helps you understand that you should do it now and not wait. Okay, I just went on a ramble. Anyway, chapter 2. Even though you are very young right now, David Bach explains in his book, The Automatic Millionaire, that you really should start coming up with a retirement plan. I know many of you may not really be thinking about retirement. I know I was not when I was in my 20s, even in my 30s. My revelation came when I turned 40, which is still very young. And I still, because my expenses were low and my income was increasingly going up, nothing astronomical, but I kept expenses down. My income was going up. I knew I was positioned for success if I did the right things. However, many of you, as you get older, may have more expenses than I did, which means you have to make more money to pay for these expenses, right? So, for you, I think at a young age, you should be thinking about a retirement plan. You should be, making sure that you're making more money, of course, that you are building your savings, you are wanting to retire somewhat wealthy. You should be thinking about that now and how you can get there. You should be thinking about clearing your debts, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And maybe if you are a homeowner, we'll talk about this later as well, you should think about owning your home outright. But chapter 2, though, again, just to recap, chapter 2 is all about, I want you guys to be thinking about a retirement plan, even though you are very young right now. In chapter 3, David talks about investment options, stocks, bonds, cash. You know what? That's really all there is. Well, no, I should rephrase that. There's more. There's other things you can get into as well. And that is really up to you, because personal finance is a personal journey, and you should be comfortable with your own personal journey. You don't have to follow my journey, but many of you may do that. And if you do, I think it'll be very successful for you, because you guys know I just invested in low-cost index funds, which ride the market. And so that is what I chose to do. I chose to own a property, which you see here, this condo. I owned it outright at this point. I decided not to go into real estate, although many of you may go into real estate, meaning you may want to buy properties. Maybe you fix them up, maybe you sell them for a profit. There's all sorts of ways to build wealth. And I have never on my channel said that you should do this or that. I think that as long as you have knowledge and you make the right decisions that are best for you, then how could you go wrong, as long as it is an educated type of decision. But in terms of the core aspects, if you will, of investing, we've got stocks, which are equities, which help ward off inflation, and then you've got bonds, which are safer investments, which are income-producing assets that you own. And then, of course, you can have cash on the side. And by the way, I really liked the person that this week with my Vanguard advisor, and I wanna wait till Friday to talk about that. But we did talk about different types of accounts, and he applauded me for my efforts over the past many years of having different kinds of accounts. And so, the bucket strategy, though, regardless of what types of accounts you have it in, is basically saying you've got equities for long-term investing. You don't touch those for perhaps a long time. Then you could have another bucket of money that you might need in 5 years. And then you could have cash because you need that perhaps to live. Now, that would be for somebody perhaps going into retirement per se, in terms of the cash, but your bucket strategy is something you can talk to your financial person about, a financial advisor, in terms of, what asset allocation you should be in, what is your comfort level, because only you can decide what your comfort level is. Maybe 80% stocks, 20% bonds, maybe 60-40, which is where I'm at, and I'll be going to 50-50 soon. And so, in the book, David Buck is talking about understanding investment options that you have. So moving on to chapter 4, he talks about building a safety net, and that you should have a savings account for emergencies. Of course, we know that, right? He says that people, on average, only have about 3 months worth of expenses saved, and he argues that that's not enough. He thinks that you should have a lot more. And you know what? I also agree that people should have a lot more. Maybe 6 months, because we never know what will happen. There could be a pandemic like we had in 2020. Lots of people lost their jobs, and they didn't find jobs for maybe a year later. So he talks about the fact that we just never know what is going to happen. And so having that safety net for the times that you're not working while you're still working, leading up into retirement, is so important. Because then, if you have a safety net, you continue to not put money on credit cards. Because if you did not have a safety net, then you'd probably go to your credit cards. And we, of course, do not want that. Chapter 5 is all about clearing your debts. He says that on average, American families, and this could be true of other countries as well, that people have about $5,000, $6,000 to maybe $8,000 of credit card debt, again, on average. And that's a lot. Now, I actually have about $8,000 of credit card debt right now. I know, scandal, right? It's on a 0% credit card. I think I shared that with you before, that one of my strategies this year has been, and last year, to leverage 0% credit cards, because I know I have a lot of willpower. When it comes to spending, I don't do emotional spending. I've conquered that through the years, but if you have not conquered that, you probably don't want to get a credit card. Especially at 0%, because in your mind you'll be like, oh, I can pay for this, next year sometime. But what I do is I put food, all my groceries, and the fun that I have on that credit card, and other expenses as well, like my insurance policies, car insurance, etc. And then I'll pay it before the 0% expires. And so I do have $8,000 of credit card debt that I will pay in February of